Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
It is getting ugly. You knew it would at some point. The frustration, you could hear it in Putin's voice, even though you don't understand the language, the look on his face. The reality is that it wasn't going the way he wanted because he thought he was going to roll over everybody. And people have just suggested they got a 40-mile convoy. How easy would it be to have one jet just lay it all out, right? Just one jet, one fighter, right? Just go in there and just strafe it and just, whoa. Like that's, you're right, because you're looking and you're seeing an invasion and you're thinking this is just, but this is the deterrent of nuclear weapons, guys. This is the deterrent of it. This is, well, if he doesn't have nuclear weapons, does he even invade? Probably not. If he does the world stand back and say we're only going to hit you with sanctions? Or do they get together a team while the buildup is there, and then eventually, the minute he invades, people push back? That's the deterrent. That's why when you get a big chip in the game, right? You get that prize. See North Korea. That's why Iran wants one so bad. And understand why the fight to stop Iran from getting one. Look at this right here. If Iran develops nuclear weapons, how does that shape the Middle East? How does that make him the biggest bully on the block, able to do whatever they want, minus Israel? That's why. That's why the want to get one is so bad. It's like, oh, God, if we just had one of those, nobody do this crap to us. Because you're always worried. Well, you know, if we went in there, they may do something. The frustration's there. We can see it. We're not putting people on the ground, at least not yet. The reality is, at some point in time, if this thing ends up bleeding out to other parts of Europe, in particular NATO countries, well, we as a country, while involved, aren't putting, quote unquote, America versus only. The NATO countries will be involved. And I don't know if that's going to happen, and I don't know what his end game is. I think at some point in time, I think he wants to see how far we're willing to go with the threat of nuclear capabilities right there. But the frustration, he's now starting to ratchet it up, and he's going to continue to do that. Case in point, the attack today in the second biggest city in Ukraine, and the bombs he's using.
Russia escalating its attacks, striking civilian targets in Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv, an administrative building targeted with a massive strike. Multiple social media videos from the scene showing the attack by Kharkiv's Freedom Square. The mayor of the city saying Russians have switched tactics to aerial bombardment after their ground offensive failed.
Yeah. And that's the reality of it. That's where he's at. Now they're starting to talk about other things, like, are you using things you're not supposed to be using? Are you using things that would now put you as a war criminal rather than a head of state? Is that a possibility? Yeah.
Human Rights Watch pointing to this video online, accusing the Russians of using cluster bombs on the city. If verified, an attack on civilian areas would be a war crime.
Ooh, that changes some of the narrative. Russia's not going anywhere. We've talked about this. Eventually, the might of the Russians is going to overthrow the fight back. And it hasn't started yet, the battle for Kyiv, but it's going to. It could happen tonight. Got the State of the Union. It's kind of weird that there's a State of the Union, and this is going to be going on all the while. Zelensky and them may be battling it out for survival, not just for the country, but for their own lives, which is, I mean, it's getting that close. Because now you've got 40 miles of convoys coming in. And those 40 miles are bringing soldiers who now know what the game is all about, if you will. They're coming in ready to fight. And while you're arming everybody and you're getting everything ready, and people are looking at you as this leader that it was thrust upon you. You were a YouTube comedian who had the biggest show in Ukraine, and then you became their president, and then you had to deal with all of the craziness and chaos in your first few months with Trump And here you are now looking over, and you've got the bully on the block who's rolling in, and you're staying steadfast. You're keeping your family there, which I think is kind of a mistake. I get my family. In fact, I got to be honest with you. As much as some people, ladies, would like to stay back and fight, at this point in time, you all need to leave. Not because I don't think you're capable, just because, well, Russians. So now what? Well, got to figure that out. Reported today, and remember, the first casualty in war is what? The truth. 17 children been killed. What do I say gets people pissed and angry? What do I say changes narratives when it comes to war and things like that? When people see innocents, especially women and children, killed, that changes minds. Do I think anything's going to happen? Not yet. Not yet. But the reality is, this is going to get ugly at some point. And if it starts to become that slaughter, if it starts to become that, is somebody going to step in? I don't think so. And the reason's simple. The threat of nuclear. We were talking yesterday, was it the thermobaric bomb, which is that giant, the father of all bombs. We have the Moab, the mother of all bombs that we released, and we dropped it in Afghanistan. It's massive. It uses the air as kind of the ignition point, and it sucks everything out, the oxygen. It vaporizes you and then crushes you from the inside. It's horrific. They have one that's bigger that they could use, and that is a possibility. That's what we were worried about. Some people said they've already used one of the vacuum bombs along with cluster bombs. I don't know. But as the desperateness starts to roll in, and one of the other things is tactical nukes, which people don't talk about. There's battlefield nukes that are small, that aren't going to have massive effects when it comes to radiation and fallout, but are devastating. Could he use that? I don't know what his mindset is. And that's one of the things they're looking at right now is the U.S. and world intelligence is all trying to figure out what mindset does Putin have? And I don't know. Man. Yesterday, watching because he does all of his interviews live now, or his meetings. He does them all live on TV. And the weird sitting at the end of the table while everyone else is like 400 feet away. It looks like a parody. It does. It looks like, is this a Saturday Night Live skit? I mean, they are so far away. So somebody tweeted yesterday, they're in the Ukraine. That's how far away they are. But trying to figure out what his mindset is, that's going to be the toughest thing. Because there's times I don't think he knows what the end game is. Where will we be in a week? Are they still going to be fighting in the streets? Or is the Ukraine in the position at that point in time where they've either thwarted the attack, or the most likelihood is the Russians have rolled over everything and are now occupying? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. It's interesting, though. If we didn't have a threat of a guy who's got nuclear weapons and has put his crew on high alert, would we have stepped in? That's a fair question to ask. Tonight, President of the United States is going to give his first State of the Union as President of the United States. Biden's turn to go, and, well, ugly numbers.
As Biden's approval ratings slump to 37%, he's expected to shift away from his Build Back Better plan and instead focus on ways to improve the economy, increase domestic manufacturing, strengthen supply chains, and promote competition to lower prices and costs for families. The president also aims to turn a page on the pandemic. Coronavirus cases have dropped more than 30% over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah. Coronavirus cases yesterday. I mean, here we called it No Mask Monday, so we don't have to wear a mask anymore. The numbers have fallen off. Oddly enough, right before the State of the Union in the Capitol, you no longer have to wear a mask, which people are like, that's kind of weird. And this is going to be something. I said, watch the way this thing plays out. Okay? Watch the way this plays out. He's going to tout, look what I did, all of these things. But this is what COVID looks like in the future. But we got to be ready for it, got to be understanding. I'm telling you guys, you watch what happens as we get closer to the midterms. And Democrat states, in particular places where you're going to see some real battles, will be far more hesitant to mask up if there's an uptick and a surge in COVID cases than places where you know you're going to win. Like California will have no problem putting the mask mandates right back in place. Other places where it's tough, because people are going to be remembering this, especially when it comes to kids in school. People are going to remember this. Of course, then the other thing is you go out and you talk about all the stuff you did, right? Like, this is all the things we did. Look how great we are. Look how much we kicked butt. That's the other side of it. Tonight you go and you tout.
What we're going to see the president talk about in his speech is what they have been able to get accomplished. The fact that we are not where we were when he took office in 2020, that life has returned to a new sort of normal, but it's a lot more normal than where we were at the height of the pandemic.
Well, of course. The height of the pandemic, yeah. Is it better? I don't know. Gas prices through the roof. We're going to talk about that. We've got potential World War III raging in the Ukraine. Inflation. Our border's a hot mess. We had a debacle in Afghanistan. And the economy is weird. And that's the best way to describe the economy right now. Weird. And are we closer together? No, I would say no. In fact, I think at times we're getting further apart. Talked about it last week. What are we doing? We're moving to places where we can get in our own echo chamber because we feel welcome there. That's scary. You can tout, but the great COVID vaccination wasn't actually a vaccine. The great COVID vaccination was Omicron. It got enough people who were unvaccinated and or even people who had one shot, two shots, some people got the booster. It just had enough people that got it, build up such an immunity that it essentially killed itself off. So, end of the day, you can tout it, but I think the reality is your ratings at 37%. I think only Trump and Ford had worse ratings. That's tough to come back from. And especially when you have the potential of watching the Ukraine fall to the evil empire. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from all of you. A lot of stuff to squeeze in today. Will we or won't we have baseball? What are some of the crazy things that Russia's getting kicked out of now? So we got a list of some of the stuff they're not allowed to do anymore and organizations that will not have them, which will be interesting, including IOC's, that's the International Olympic Committee, and their hypocrisy, because they are very hypocritical. More on the State of the Union. A lot of stuff to get to. Car Shield. I've got it for my cars. You should get it for your cars. A lot of you know what's going on in the world of cars right now. What happened? Prices through the roof, especially used vehicles. People, I'm here to tell you, one of my cars, well, my cars are all used now, but I bought one of them 2 years ago, and I put on a fair, decent amount of miles. And I'll tell you this right now, I can get more for it now than what I paid for it. Think about that for a second. More for it now than I paid for it. That's why I got Car Shield. I don't have a warranty on it, but I have something that protects it with Car Shield, 24/7 roadside assistance, a rental car for free while my car's in the shop. I choose the shop. They pay them directly. I pay small deductible. Right now, save 10%. Go to carshield.com. Use code Benson. See all the great plans they have there. When you use code Benson, you save 10% right there. They get plans to fit everybody's budget. Carshield.com/Benson. Carshield.com/Benson. Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
All of this coming as Europe closes its airspace to Russian aircraft. With far fewer flights, the US is now telling its citizens to leave Russia immediately. In response, Russia is banning airlines from 36 countries. The international outrage is growing. Soccer's governing bodies banning Russia from the World Cup and all competitions. Shell Oil announcing it will quit all its Russian operations. That follows BP, who divested its nearly 20% stake in the country's key oil company Rosneft. FedEx and UPS are also halting all shipments into the country.
Google and Facebook's parent company Meta also blocking Russian state media from receiving money for ads.
And let's not forget OnlyFans and Pornhub. If you're a Russian content provider or you want to look at porn, you don't get it. Oh, that's nice. IOC came out yesterday. That's the International Olympic Committee, the worst of maybe the most corrupt organization. That's not a country outside of the UN, of course. They came out and they implored FIFA and UEFA. Those are the governing bodies of FIFA's all of soccer, and UEFA is, the European Soccer Federation, essentially. They came out, they're like, you guys really need to do something about Russia, kick them out. Because originally it was like, well, they can play, but they can't hear their anthem before the game. They can't play with their flags on their chest kind of thing. And the IOC is like, oh, you shouldn't do that. And we're like, didn't you just let them play in the Olympics based on the fact that they had cheated and they were kicked out? But you're like, well, they can participate, but they just can't participate as Russia. They're going to be the Russian Olympic Committee. That is where we are in this, kids. That is where we are. So Disney is scrapping some of their stuff as well, rightly so, which is good.
It started with Disney, which said it would pause, for now, all new movie releases in Russia, beginning with the upcoming Pixar film Turning Red. Disney says in a statement, quote, given the unprovoked invasion of Ukraine and the tragic humanitarian crisis, we are pausing the release of theatrical films in Russia. Soon after, Warner Media followed suit, saying this weekend's release of the upcoming The Batman won't go forward for now in Russia, and they'll continue to monitor the situation.
Nobody could afford to go see Batman anyways, The Batman or Batman, with how horrible, the rubles and rubbles. That's the best way to describe it. It's just very weird. It's so funny, the sanctimonious kind of like, let's do this now. All the while, Disney goes, and during the Mulan movie, they thank the people and the ministers of the region where they have 3 million Uyghurs locked up in re-education camps. So it shows you the difference. It's easy to kick somebody like Russia out of stuff when they really don't bring anything money-wise to the actual game or to the place or to the product. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
State of the Union tonight. We've got your comprehensive breakdown, not of the speech itself, but the betting odds, because that's more important at this point in time. Man, they got some great things that you can bet on. They really, really do. We're going to break that down, give you the odds coming up in a little bit. Things like Speaker of the House, right? Who's going to mention in his opening remarks. They've even got who's going to be the designated survivor, over under on the time. And my favorite is the word bingo odds. This is a word that Biden may say at any time. Oh, my goodness me. We'll touch on that a little bit. Nightmare going on, obviously, in the Ukraine. We're watching that, as we should, over the next, I would say, 24 to 48 hours may be the go time. We have not seen the battles in the street that we thought we were going to see originally. The Ukrainians have put up a decent battle. We've talked about it. We've had several people talk about it as well that we've listened to and or interviewed that said, quite frankly, the Russians, they're not into it. Some of them really aren't into it. You've got a young group of people that some of them are essentially going into homes and surrendering and calling their moms and dads from Ukrainians' homes saying, why are we doing this? They're attacking people. But now I think you're going to start to see the serious stuff in the next, I would say 24 to 48 hours as they head towards, Kyiv, which is going to be the big battle. This is where everybody is going to expect to see the absolute massive battle in the coming, I would say, like I say, 24 to 48 hours. And you're starting to see the ramping up of bombing, which is going on. And it is. I mean, it is ramping up tremendously in what they're doing. And they're now, by all looks of it, starting to look like they're taking on anything in front of them. If it's a building, if they don't care. And what was the whole thing? We're coming here. Originally, it was expansion of the West. Then it was the Ukraine has always been our heart. Then it was we're going to denazify and demilitarize the Ukraine. And now the new one today is that we're hearing is they were trying to get a nuclear weapon. So we're doing this for everybody's good. And let's not forget that, they weren't going to supposedly, quote unquote, kill civilians. Always changes the narrative. Right? When you start killing innocent people, war is an ugly, nasty thing. We all understand that. And when there are people fighting, and they both have weapons, while it's horrible that somebody's going to get injured or die, the reality is each of them at least had a fair footing in something. It's not that way. It's not. When you start going after civilians, it is totally, totally different.
Looks like the Russian military is going to focus on targeting civilians as a way to cause terror and potentially advance farther than they are right now.
Yeah. Already today, we've seen a massive bombing. They're saying children have been killed. Is that true? Again, disinformation, right? Whether it's the ghost of Kyiv or Snake Island and those guys dying, whatever it is, you have disinformation out there because the thing that gets the first casualty in the war is what? Truth, because you're trying to build up your side and also put fear into the other side because they know they're going to hear the information as well. It's all the war of disinformation.
We had shelling today in Kharkiv, that's in the east, and 3 children died after the great bombing.
Yeah. And we've heard everything from 17 children to 11 children to 10 children to 3 children. 1 child is too many. But the reality is it's hard to know what's going on, truth-wise. It is. In this TikTok war that we are seeing, because we're seeing all kinds of stuff, right? But even some of that isn't as real as people say it is. And it is going to get ugly, though. I have a feeling the next 24 to 48 hours, you've got a 40-mile long convoy with tons of Russian soldiers, and they're heading in to Kyiv because they realize this is it. This is what they're going to do. This is the place where it's all going to happen. If they take this, which eventually I believe they're going to, I just think with the massive size that they have, even as nasty as the fighting is going to get, I think eventually the weapons, just the advantages they have, it is going to be tremendous. And let's be real here. It's not the taking. The occupying is going to be the tough spot because occupying, as we know all too much, it's much harder than winning a battle.
Even to hold down a part of that giant country with the constant threat of reprisals and guerrilla attacks would be militarily exhausting and economically ruinous for the Russian occupiers.
That's Boris Johnson, UK Prime Minister. It's that, and that's just it. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, when we fed them, the Afghanis, right? The Mujahideen, the fighters for gods, right? When we started feeding them all the munitions, the stingers, everything they needed to make Russia's Afghanistan adventure a nightmare, it almost bankrupted them. It did, because occupying is totally different. Occupying is absolutely different. Have you never watched Red Dawn? If you've not, you should check it out. See the first one. Second one was First one, great. Occupying is much different. And the toll that takes, the exhaustion that takes of every day bombings. We saw it in Iraq with ISIS and with Al-Qaeda. We saw it in Afghanistan with the Taliban. Occupying is exhausting. So now that you have it, what are you going to do? You're going to make it part of Russia? You're going to keep it the Ukraine? How does that work? You're going to put in a puppet government that nobody votes for? And you don't think there's going to be reprisals? Good luck to you on that. Good luck to you. Next 24 to 48 hours, I'm telling you, is going to be the massive thing that we're going to be watching for. Because I think this is when the war takes a turn where the violence, the atrocities, the massive bombs, things of that nature start to take place. And this is when, see how the world reacts. Again, if he doesn't have nuclear weapons, and there's no threat of nuclear weapons, there's no doubt in my mind the world reacts in a different way. But when you have that threat of a nuclear weapon, guess what happens? Everybody stands back and says, well, let's see where this goes. We'll support you as much as we can. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program tonight. Well, it is going to be the State of the Union. What will he talk about?
President Biden's speech comes amid Russia's ongoing invasion into Ukraine. The president expected to highlight his administration's steps to support Ukraine and punish Russia, while touting the united response from the West. The White House saying the economy here at home will also take center stage, especially as gas prices and high inflation hamper the president's popularity.
Yeah, his popularity is down, but you could watch it for the reasons that, you're curious. What's he going to say? Or you could say, well, you know what? If I got to sit through this damn thing, I'm going to bet. So we have your betting odds on tonight's State of the Union. People are like, there's betting odds? Oh, of course there is. From Bet Online, they've created a State of the Union word bingo, as well as many other things. First of all, over-under tonight, 65 minutes. Over-under. Over-under. Now, let's get to who is the president going to mention in the opening remarks. Plus 240, Speaker of the House. Plus 275, fellow Americans. Plus 350, Vice President, members of Congress, 400. Plus 800, First Lady, and Senate Majority Leader, plus 800. So the Speaker of the House, that's the favorite there. You start going, who's the designated survivor? Now, this I always find interesting because usually you got to go like, okay, who's the Undersecretary of Agriculture is usually, who is the Undersecretary of Agriculture? Because that is always who the is the person. They always put somebody like that. You're like, who? Don't worry. If something was to go crazy tonight and it was you would, then everybody dies. You are Homer Wilkes. President Wilkes. Oh, it's got smart money tonight's on Merrick Garland, plus 700. Long shots. If you want to just take a run, throw some cash at it, plus 2,500. Pete Buttigieg and Nancy Pelosi and Harris are plus 5,000. Right? Over under 538.com. President Biden's approval rating on March 6th. Over under 41%. Total viewers, over under 35 million. Length of the State of the Union, we've already gone to that. Over under 65 minutes. What did you say, Phil? Hour, 10 minutes?
I said an hour and 10, but 65 sounds good.
Yeah, 65 sounds good. Now, what president Biden will say first? Russia, Ukraine. Plus 160 Russia, minus 200 Ukraine. What will Biden say first? Zelensky plus 200, Putin minus 300. Now, let's get to the fun stuff. Well, coronavirus. What's he going to say first? Pandemic or coronavirus? Plus 200, coronavirus. CDC and masking are both 120. Here's my favorite, though. State of the Union word bingo odds. I think producer Anthony said malarkey, right? I think he was one of the things he threw out there. It is not on there. Mayor Pete plus 1,000. Fox News plus 700. Brandon plus 1,000. Oh, my goodness. Sedition plus 300. Former guy plus 400. Nazi plus 250. Fascist or fascism plus 250. Trump, plus 200. Thug, plus 160. Scandinavia, plus 140. Obama, plus 100. So there's a lot of these. Democracy, minus 700. Build Back Better, minus 400. So you got to bet 400 to win 100. So Universal Pre-K, minus 225. So those are the word bingo. Latvia, plus 150. I take a run at the old Latvia there. Man, there isn't some of his, I would love the malarkey thing. No corn pop? No corn pop. Nope. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. MyPillow right now has for you deep, massive discounts on all MyPillow products, including $19.99, the lowest it's ever been for the MyPillow. You get a 6-day money-back guarantee, 10-year warranty. They've got the MyPillow mattress topper, which I love. They've got the incredible My Slippers. They've got so many different things, including the Giza Dream Sheets, the towels, you name it, they've got it. All at discounts that are massive. Plus, when you go and you order and use code Benson at the checkout at MyPillow.com, they're going to send you Mike Lindell's book absolutely free. It's essentially talking about how he had a massive drug addiction and went from that to become the CEO of MyPillow. Take advantage of all these deep discounts across all of the MyPillow products, including the lowest price ever for the MyPillow. Go to MyPillow.com. Use promo code Benson. MyPillow.com. Promo code Benson. Chad Benson Show.
No need to socially distance while listening to your Chad Benson Show podcast. 4 out of 5 experts say so.
I'm a scientist. There is no corona.
But hurry before they change their mind. You know they will. Chad's podcast found on iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, and wherever you find your favorite COVID-free podcasts.
Oh my gosh. I kind of like it. I'm not going to lie.
This is the Chad Benson Show.
Will there or won't there be baseball? Right now, I don't think so.
Because as profits in the game have risen, as revenues in the game have risen, as franchise values in the game have risen, player salaries have not. And owners like that. They look at that and say, that's how the world should be. That's how you run a successful business, by paying your employees as little as possible.
And again, I know what people think. Well, why God? That's like they're getting paid a ton of money. Yeah, I mean, it's there's no doubt. Major League Baseball players make a ton of money. But, you look at the NFL, right? Like, they have a salary cap, which they don't in baseball. They have a luxury tax, which is a bunch of crap because baseball, they don't care. But secondly, and this is something that's important, is there is so much money in baseball, in particular in local deals. And players are looking and going, yeah, we're not getting any of that revenue. Some players are. Some players are signing contracts for 10 years and $500 million. You're like, oh, my God, that's huge. And it is. But the average player's looking around saying, no, big why? Well, because if you were, like, imagine what the Dodgers are worth today. The Yankees. If you were to buy the Yankees, you might spend $10 billion. By the Yankees. The revenues are through the roof. So for a lot of people out there going, is there going to be baseball? Yeah. I think there is. It's not going to be. I think they'll get a deal done. And this is the way negotiations go. And they waited they put each other off right after the season. But players are pissed. And, they're feeling like, wait a minute, it's about us, right?
The players are the game. Like that's what this comes down to. The players are the game, and I don't think the owners recognize that, and I don't know what the end game is here, but if it means we're losing opening day, the game's a whole lot worse off for it.
Yeah. So when do I think they'll go? I think they get it done closer to the end of the month, and then baseball starts in May, and it's an abbreviated season, which is not the worst thing. I think baseball's really, really long. I don't think we need as many games as we do, but if you're a baseball player, you want that revenue because that revenue means you get paid more. I think the fans would go, I could do a 120-game season. But the players want to get paid for 162 games. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. I do. I found this to be interesting. I tweeted it out. Of course, people have to. There's always some snark here. So, starting tomorrow, I think, Kyrie Irving of the Nets can go to a basketball game in Brooklyn, watch his team play without a mask, but he cannot play on the team still. Soak that up for a second. I'm going to go over that again. Kyrie Irving, basketball player for the Nets, can go watch his team play because he's not vaccinated. And in doing so, he can sit in the crowd, not wear a mask, and watch the game. But he cannot play. I don't find the reason in any of that. But with this whole coronavirus, has there been reasons? Not at times. Not at times. I don't think there has been. And this is just, I mean, the thought process of going and watching. It's like the pilot can't fly the plane because he's not vaccinated, but he can fly in the plane. That's what? Yeah, exactly. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Ah, man, State of the Union tonight. People are asking questions. What is he going to talk about? How's he going to approach everything? I think that's it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the way that he does that. And a lot of that's going to have to do on what's going on in the Ukraine. I'm going to say this, a couple things. There's no doubt in my mind that the world would love to eviscerate that convoy we see. There's no doubt in my mind that we would love to protect the Ukrainians after this invasion. But the understanding is simply this. That guy's got a nuclear weapon. That guy's got a nuclear weapon. And nuclear weapons tend to put people off. Right? If he didn't have a nuke, I think it's fair to say we, being the West, right, European allies and whatnot, would probably have offered some form of resistance, whether it's through airstrikes or things of that nature. At this point in time, though, it's not happening. Right? The best that we can do is continue to send, as much as we possibly can in the way of military equipment. As much as we possibly can when it comes to the boycotts, banning them off SWIFT, which is the banking, trying to destroy their economy, all of those things. But outside of that, not a lot. And now the world is focusing on Kyiv. There's a convoy, and this seems to be the place where the battle is going to go down.
We've now got this massive Russian convoy heading in this direction. Not just Russian troops, but also Chechens who have a fearsome reputation. And I think we have to remember that this conflict still isn't a week old, and we should expect it to get worse. And if you look at what Putin did in Syria and Chechnya, it's fair to conclude that he has a long and bloody track record of disregarding civilian safety.
And that's already starting to happen. We're seeing that. The bombings are starting to ramp up. Earlier today, you saw a building that was hammered by a massive bomb. Children apparently have been killed, and the collateral damage thing is now he's throwing caution to the wind. The frustration's there, and now you're bringing in the Chechens, and the Chechens they're brutal. Plus, you have this Wagner group that apparently has been in the Ukraine since January. And they are a brutal mercenary group of people that have aligned themselves with the President Putin and the Russians, and they have been involved in just about every kind of foreign action that you can think of. You start looking and you're like, Syria, right? Like, yeah, you're there. Just about every civil war in Africa. I mean, there has been so many. They've offered Hamas, you name it. They've been a part of it. Sudanese revolution, Venezuela presidential crisis, insurgency in Cabo, civil war in both Sudan, as well as Libya. And, they're a hit squad. That's who you're bringing in. You're bringing in a hit squad. The retired regular Russian servicemen, ages 35 to 55, who get anywhere between 80,000 and 250,000 rubles a month. Some get as much as 300 rubles a month, which right now is worth nothing. And I can tell you right now, they're probably being paid in dollars. So then you throw all that in, and then, of course, you've got the bombs. And the bombs are starting to ramp up. Already talks of, did he commit a war crime? And yes, civilians now, well, you're just part of what's there. If you're there, you're in the way.
The Russians are not caring anymore about civilian casualties. They have to do what they think they need to do, and that's going to include leveling civilian areas.
Yeah, and that is going to happen. And then you've got okay, so now you're shooting some missiles, but are you using stuff you're not supposed to be using on top of it?
Human Rights Watch pointing to this video online, accusing the Russians of using cluster bombs on the city. If verified, an attack on civilian areas would be a war crime.
So that's where we are. And our people here, our intelligence, as well as the intelligence around the globe, are all starting to ask questions that we've been asking here, as well as several other shows, about the wellness of Putin. Because there's all kinds of misinformation and disinformation, and that guy's the king of it. Because there has been some issues where other world leaders have said there's something about him that's different. 2-3 years ago, before COVID, he was much different. The way that he's going about handling stuff, especially with all the things that you see with Putin in like all those meetings, those are all live. So you watch them and break them down. The way that he has hammered his people, some of his closest confidants. Who's been around this guy for a while, right? Did COVID freak him out? Did he get into a point where he became a germaphobe? Did he become Howie Mandel? Don't want anybody around him? I mean, that picture, and I tweeted it out yesterday, of him sitting in this, it's a farce. He's like 100 feet away, it looks like, from his nearest generals that he's speaking to. And I think everybody's starting to ask questions about what's his mindset like.
Sergei Shoigu, Russia's defense minister, is thought to be closest to him. They've been known to go on hunting expeditions together. Sergei Lavrov, Putin's foreign minister, he may be the public face of the regime, but it's thought not as close to the president. Chief spy Alexander Bortnikov, he's head of the FSB, successor to the Soviet spy agency, the KGB, and apparently a trusted advisor. Those closest to Putin share his Cold War mentality, so even if he is listening to advice, it may only be what he wants to hear.
Yeah. And some of the oligarchs out there are, first of all, they're trying to hide their money places that the banks in the world can't get a hold of. Secondly, they're trying to hide their yachts, their stuff, right? Like, kick their kids out of school. There's a lot of oligarchs who got their kids in schools here in America. It's time to kick their asses out. Now, there's a few oligarchs out there we have kind of put on you know what? They've been speaking out against Putin for a very long time. And we're kind of just giving them a wide berth because they're continuing to do so. We saw a couple come out yesterday that has spoke out against Putin. But the inner circle, where he's hidden his money, do they have any say? I mean, if this guy was to go nuclear, is that a possibility? Is there somebody there who's going to say no? I don't know if there is. I don't know if there is. You would like to think, right? Like I look over and I see if Iran got a bomb. Is there really somebody there that would stop it? I don't know. There's no way anybody's stopping Kim Jong-un. I would find it hard. Xi, I think, would have a tougher time, actually. The Politburo, the people that he's going to be, those guys around him, high in the Communist Party, I think there would be some pushback. But for Putin, it's totally different. But you would like to think that somebody would say no. But if you surround yourself with certain people that are only going to give you the answers you want, who are in the echo chamber that you're in, and who are protected because of you, it's going to be tough. Tonight, State of the Union. Who's excited? Who's excited? First of all, is there going to be masks?
When he walks into the House chamber tonight, President Biden will see a very different scene than when he was there to address the nation last April. Tonight marks the first time the president will face a full chamber. The COVID restrictions on Capitol Hill have eased in recent days. Masking is optional tonight, though attendees are required to show a negative COVID test. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki Monday said the president had no role in the mask requirement at the Capitol being lifted right before his speech, but many House Democrats had privately been pushing to lift the restrictions.
Yeah, because they see it as something that's going to be pulling them down in the coming, months, especially when it comes to the way that I think people thought this thing was ridiculous, the way it was handled, the masking BS that continued to go on, the fighting in schools over masking. And I think that's just odd that you're going to tonight, right? Like yesterday, they decided to pull it. Plus, his numbers, man, his numbers suck. His numbers are awful.
As Biden's approval ratings slumped to 37%, he's expected to shift
37%. I just want to give you guys Trump and Ford. That's it. 37%. That's the number he's sitting at.
He's expected to shift away from his Build Back Better plan and instead focus on ways to improve the economy, increase domestic manufacturing, strengthen supply chains, and promote competition to lower prices and costs for families. The president also aims to turn a page on the pandemic. Coronavirus cases have dropped more than 30% over the last 3 weeks, though thousands of Americans are still dying from the disease.
So they're dying from lots of disease. We're not talking about heart disease. We're not talking about cancer. I would say it's an endemic, not pandemic. We're getting on with our lives, and you focus on other stuff. If you really want to change it, you're going to go out and you're going to tout some stuff, but it's hard. People have serious questions. I mean, you know what? I never fall in love, barely fall in like with politicians. Don't care what side of the aisle you're on. But it's a put-up game, and I can look and say, okay, you got the infrastructure bill done. What else have you done? It was a nightmare at the border, nightmare in Afghanistan. Inflation is rising. People aren't giving you credit for the recovery, and why should they? When you tell everybody they have to go home, and when they go home and then they come back to work, you haven't created a job. They just gave people their jobs back. The American people who should be credited with the recovery. We spent like we're drunken sailors, and now you have a Ukraine issue that is a nightmare. You're not drilling anymore. And again, if we turned on the spigot today and started drilling, it's still going to take a while for any of that stuff to kick in. You focused on bizarre stuff at times. You've got issues. You do. You've got some serious issues. Give you props where props is due, and tonight, he's going to have a full crowd. All that being said, I don't expect much. And it's still weird, too, that he's going to be giving a speech tonight at the State of the Union while Kiev will probably be emerging from their nightmare of a night, which is probably what we're going to see tonight. In fact, at bottom of the hour, Mike Lyons, our military analyst, is going to come on and talk about what we can expect over the next 24, 48, 72 hours, what that might look like. Chance to get ugly is real. And now it seems like the Russians have taken their gloves off and they're going to come full throttle. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet us, text the program. Calibrate. Want to lose weight? Want to lose percentage of body weight? It's Calibrate. That's the best that you can do. Imagine making lifestyle changes, which is the right thing to do, but also you couple that with actual FDA-approved medication. Doctor visits, video, one-on-one coaching, in-app tracking, and a support group that you work with. You see what takes place with Calibrate. Calibrate is crushing it. And the reason's simple. They're not asking you to go out and eat virtually nothing and hope that you lose some weight and take some weird stuff. They're saying, look, we got FDA-approved medication. It's simple and easy. You watch what happens when you do this. The earliest members of Calibrate have lost well over 15 or 20% of their body weight. Imagine today if you lost 40, 50, 60, 100 pounds by making small changes, healthy changes, but also metabolic reset with your body, getting it to understand those changes are good for your body, not to freak your body out. Simple and easy, fits into anybody's schedule. Right now, $50 off for 1 year metabolic reset. Right? JoinCalibrate.com. Use code CHAD. JoinCalibrate.com. Use code CHAD. You will not be disappointed. JoinCalibrate.com. Code CHAD saves you $50 right there. Chad Benson Show.
Helen Keller is a Nazi terrorist that is a male. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Yeah.
Are you thinking of Hitler?
Who's Hitler?
Vaccines work, but only the Chad Benson Show is 100% effective against stupidity.
Do you know what D-Day is? D-Day.
In person? A rapper?
God, Karen, you are so stupid.
Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and wherever you find your favorite woke-free podcasts. This is the Chad Benson Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Now it's time to find out what's trending. What's trending? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean something, right? Like it's trending on the old internet. What's trending? Let's take a peek, find out what's trending. Let's start in Twitter because it makes me laugh. Juicy Smollett. He is trending because apparently he wants a new trial and or a reversal in the decision of his baloney. No word if he'll get either, but I'm thinking no. I'm thinking no is it. CNBC, trending. Why? Because they have the 20 most common passwords leaked on the dark web. We're going to talk about it a little bit, make sure that none of them are yours, but chances are they are. Because, well, yeah, why wouldn't it be yours? Because we all look for the easiest thing in the world because we know at the end of the day, we just want something simple. We know they could hack it anyways. California's going to stop requiring masks in schools, but at least one school district will keep the mask mandate because science! Trucker convoy moves to Washington, D.C. to protest COVID-19 restrictions just in time for there to be no restrictions. That's not very nice, Chad. Yesterday, the mock-up Time cover featuring Putin as Hitler was created as a statement, the artist said. It's very funny. Speaking of great jobs that we've done occupying places, Afghans are forced to sell their kidneys. Extreme hunger tightens its grip. Oh, that's not good. It is not good. Let's head over to Google. Google. The Batman is trending. So get prepared for a woke Catwoman and a dark Batman. It is not the feel-good movie of the year. So be prepared for that. Almost at times like some people say it's like a bit of a horror movie. Snake Island, Ukrainians found alive. They were taken as Russian prisoners. Of course, they rose to real worldwide attention last week when they told the Russian Navy to F themselves. They were taken as prisoners. Vacuum bomb. What is it? Well, Russians used a powerful vacuum bomb on Ukraine, said the envoy that's checking this stuff out, as well as several others. Could there be war crimes? That is also trending. Ooh. And Target's minimum wage to increase up to $24 an hour. Also trending. Coming up next, our good friend and yours of the program, Mike Lyons, should be joining the program. Talk about the next 24, 48, 72 hours as the convoy moves closer to Kyiv. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
You know, the last, say, 72 hours, it's been kind of a debacle for the Russians, but it seems to be that things are changing. They are throwing away all the quote-unquote conventional rules. They're bombing, they're shelling, they're using things that maybe they shouldn't be using, and it seems to be the convoy now is on the move, and Kiev is going to be the battle place. Joining us now, a guy that, retired Army, great military analyst, friend of the program, Mike Lyons. And Mike, I look at this and I think to myself, 24, 48, 72 hours, this is when it gets real, the kind of stuff we thought we were going to see much earlier, especially in Kyiv.
It's not going well for Ukraine based on what's lined up against them right now. But that's not to say they still can't hold out. I think that they have different technology. I'm watching people make different comparatives of this with regard to times in history. But at the end of the day, the Russian military can overwhelm them with indirect fire, with cruise missiles and the like. And there's something they have shown restraint about. Now, I think maybe that had a lot to do with the kind of war tribe or war crimes and that could possibly take place. Because that's the thing here is the more they go over the top and cross the line and murder civilians, basically, the further we go off on an issue of we put Putin in peril of not having an off ramp to do that, because he's not going to want to get dragged in front of the Hague, in front of a military tribunal, and we can't have regime change. So it is a dangerous situation right now. We're going to be coming up upon nightfall here shortly, and that's really when they choose to do these kinds of attacks.
So you've got the Russian military. Now we're hearing there's Belarus, and of course the Chechen fighters. What is that all about? Because he had a hell of a time in Chechnya, but you also have fighters that fight for the likes of Putin, and they seem to be the ones that people are worried about doing crossing the line.
Well, I think, this is the kind of situation where all kinds of mercenaries are going to start showing up. We've heard about the Wagner group. Now, those were the little green men that first came into Crimea back 7 or 8 years ago there when he took over that situation. And they're now looking to murder Zelensky, looking to just put a contract out on him and try to infiltrate, do it in a way that's, not overt, let's say. And Chechnya rebels and all these other kind of groups, mercenary groups, you're seeing groups come from the UK, and I'm sure there's going to be U.S. Special Forces soldiers. So people are going to cross that border and do what they can to kind of get into the mix here in what's a very asymmetrical type environment. No one knows where the enemy is. If you notice, they've painted symbols on the sides of the Russian trucks because the Russians feared that they would not be indistinguishable from the Ukraine military, which has a lot of Russian military equipment. So, the last report I saw, it said Belarus was on the sidelines. Now, they would be pretty dumb to get involved with this and start sending troops into Ukraine. That would open up another situation for Belarus now to be dragged down in this, even though they're fundamentally Russia, let's say, based on how they've acted. So let's put that one on the side for right now, but recognize, though, there are going to be other mercenary groups, Chechens and other individuals that are going to kind of show up on the battlefield, start kind of raising hell, and we have to watch them closely.
Talking to retired U.S. Army Major military analyst Mike Lyons as we talk about what's going on over there. So everybody now, I think it was a surprise that Germany said we're going to be sending stuff. Sweden, Finland, everybody's sending something. Two things. First of all, what are they sending and how useful is it? And secondly, how long does it take to actually get these things into the hands of the people that need them?
Well, the good news is that most of these countries, I'll say, are clearing their desks. And what I mean by that is when a cop is shot in New York City, all the cops kind of clear their desk, and all they worry about is finding the guy that did it. Well, that's what they're doing right now in these countries, and they're putting pallets together of Stinger missiles, which are anti-aircraft manpads, they're called, that'll take out Russian helicopters and Russian planes and help protect the skies. And the fact that the Ukraine Air Force is still flying is really a small miracle on some level. And then also these javelins, which are turning out to be even more successful. The fact that I cannot get over the amount of tanks with their tops blown off, and the fact that it takes a lot of guts to sit there and shoot a tank when you're not in a tank. You got to have some kind of line of sight to it. You have to see it, and that same tank can see you. It creates a signature. Now, this is still a fire and forget weapon. You can fire it off. It'll paint the signature, and it'll track it and attack it from the top. But the bottom line is both of these weapon systems will get to the Ukraine civilians and get to the military and they'll continue to cause a lot of damage, especially these long convoys. Now, so you look at the convoys that are on television, you can see what's kind of going on. The question I have is kind of what's in there. Are they supplies or are they actual combat weapons? They should be clearly under attack by the civilians, and I'm sure that their supply lines are already very stretched out as it is. But again, net, a lot of the equipment, I wouldn't be surprised if it starts getting into Poland in the next 48 hours and crossing the border. Hopefully, it gets there in time, but there's still a significant amount of that equipment already there as well.
I'm curious as to why there's 17-mile long convoy, and it doesn't seem to be that they're getting any kind of pushback whatsoever. You would think that they would just be, they're sitting ducks. I mean, and look, the rest of us would sit there and go, God, how many planes would it take for us to just go and wipe that entire thing out? But the reality is you would think that at some point in time there would be some pushback, some sort of, sabotage, and it doesn't seem to be that.
Yeah, I know. And I think it has a lot to do with getting the intel to them at the time that it matters. And the fact that, we're seeing it here kind of not necessarily real time, let's say in the States, but, we're seeing it and it's not translating on the ground. I think that's would be the complaint that the Ukraine military would have with regard to, how they can actually use this. There's this data and information, but then there's also the capability of actually using it and accessing it. Our intelligence community has done a fantastic job here, I think, in predicting and seeing exactly what Russian capability is. And I'm sure Vladimir Putin is not happy with that. But it doesn't look like we're able to get some actionable intelligence into the hands of the Ukraine military so they can do something with it. And a lot of it just has to do with economy of force because they're not in these locations where some of those built up areas and where those convoys actually are.
Retired U.S. Army Major Military Analyst Mike Lyons joining us. Zelensky, you and I have talked about it. Poor job preparing for this, but a hell of a job kind of becoming the face of this, and the world's taking note. The reality is, though, he's leading a ragtag bunch outside of his military, and God knows what that actually looks like at the end of the day. And what's his next move at this point in time? Because I think the world would just freak out if they caught him and executed him. But what's his next move?
I think he's got to survive. He lives for the day, and the fact that he's showing the kind of leadership that you want to see from a leader, from someone in his position. It's inspirational, endures the hardship, doing all the things, leading by example, leading from the front. So, but his primary mission is to survive, because if not, we just don't know who the second in command is. We just don't know how it happens. In some ways, if he is killed, God forbid, then Russia can declare victory and try to install somebody. He's wrecked Ukraine enough, and it's created a situation. Maybe it's an off ramp for him, but so he's got to literally, again, try to do what he can, keep lines of communications open with his military units. The center of gravity is the capital. The capital has got to be a situation where they've got to defend that at all costs. And the analogy we talked about was like eating a porcupine based on the amount of people they have there. 3 million people that are still inside, the people with the weapons they have. It's going to be difficult for them to lay claim, the Russians that I mean, lay claim for the whole capital unless they really destroy it, which I still don't think is what they want to do.
What's that fight look like, when it starts to get to that point where you're converging on the capital? And like you said, you thought they've brought not enough military, the actual, as you would say, fighters, guys who hold the guns to this. And what does that look like, though, when you converge and you're finding it becomes a street brawl?
Well, the first thing that they need to be doing right now is preparing the defense of that city and getting it out as far away from the kind of the town square, let's say, or where Zelensky is. And that's probably my only criticism of him. I don't think he prepared the country well enough for the situation that was happening. But so if he defends this in depth and creates all kinds of obstacles, and they can keep the tanks out of the main squares and stuff, they're just real targets. Molotov cocktails and those javelins, they'll be real targets for the people that are inside the city. And then they'll literally have to go building to building, block to block, and have to cover a lot of real estate. These kind of sieges last months. They're not something that happen overnight, and that's mostly because of the Russians are not going to be able to mount the kind of offensive and the numbers they need in order to kind of get through without getting through multiple kill zones. They won't have the kind of troops required to do that. It's going to take them a long time to do it, and that's where every day that they can survive, they win another day. Ukraine wins by not losing, so they survive another day and kind of get up the next day and kind of do it all over again.
Putin, right now, our intelligence agencies, all of them around the world, are hyper-focused on what is up with this guy. I mean, you see the videos of him dressing down his spy chief and the looks on the faces of the generals who are in charge of their nuclear options. Just it looks like they're not sure what's going on with him. I mean, how can anybody be sure what's, because he is crazy at times and crazy like a fox, I'm sure.
I think so. I mean, it's hard to predict exactly where he is right now, and I'm watching folks try to do that. I just got to look at this based on capabilities and what he can and can't do. He's got still tremendous capability to turn his military around, head north. He can attack into Poland. There's a lot of dumb things he could do as well. But we just don't know. Maybe he does want to start some kind of World War III. And we're trying to reconcile that out. But the fact that you have these neutral countries, Luxembourg and Sweden and Finland now wants to join NATO, this has woken up Europe in a good way. And I think that until we have the off ramp, until we have this resolved, I think we have to be real cognizant of what's going on.
Best case scenario outcome for both the Ukrainians and the world. What's it look like?
Yeah, so I think this ends, let's say we go back to G-0, which is what the things looks like before it started. So you have some kind of formal process where, Russia keeps Crimea and the Ukraine government admits to that. I think the Donbass region, those areas that are more or less aligned with Russia, or so to speak, or, maybe they become part of Russia. Maybe that boundary gets redrawn. Maybe they become part of the Russian Federation. Maybe they become those separate states. So maybe that's the same. Maybe that's what happens there. I think in the upside, Ukraine gets to join the EU. I think they're not going to join NATO. Maybe they make a commitment not to join NATO right now in the short term. But let's say we get them into the EU, and now the West becomes very partly responsible for rebuilding Ukraine. And then, 20 years from now, maybe Vladimir Putin is long gone, and maybe you'll see the Ukraine join NATO if NATO was around in 20 years. So I think that provides the best off ramp, basically a kind of a reset for where we were. I call it, G-0 day. And if we can kind of get to that spot where the Ukraine government does give up those few areas and admits to not joining NATO right now, perhaps the fighting can stop.
What's your gut say, though? That's the best. What's your gut say?
My gut says that's the only peaceful off ramp. So if I'm Anthony Blinken, you and I have talked about this. To me, is more not like a situation in recent times, other than the Arab-Israeli conflicts. And this requires subtle diplomacy. And when the United States has got to get on a plane and he's got to get there and on the ground and start meeting with these people. And we've got to get legitimate negotiators, trying to figure this situation, because that's how the situation was resolved in the Middle East. When the Arab countries would come to Israel and they would put their large troops and large formations on the border and try to bankrupt the country until they finally attacked it, in 73. I think this is a very similar situation. And back then, Henry Kissinger did just that. Both sides threatened nuclear weapons back then as well. There's a lot of similarities between then and now. My gut says that's the only peaceful off-ramp, because other than that, what's going to happen is Ukraine is destroyed. Kiev is destroyed. All those beautiful churches are destroyed, and they become part of Russia. And now we've recreated the Cold War, because now we have a hardline border between East and West, and it's back to the future.
Ugly. Mike Lyons, love having you on, military analyst, retired U.S. Army major. Love having you on. Appreciate you coming on, taking time with us today. We'll talk to you soon.
Next, Chad. Talk soon. Yep, perfect.
Thanks. At Chad Benson Show, Twitter, ChadBenson. Yeah, I mean, it would be, I think at this point, if we could say you can keep the Donbass region and keep the Crimea and draw a new line, I think that would be one thing that I think people go, yeah, I think we take that. But it's not over by any means. That's for sure. Talk about that. A few other things straight ahead. Chad Benson Show.
Welcome to Chad. No, not the country. The institution. The Chad Benson Show.
That was interesting. Again, I like, the Ukraine's probably going to have to realize at some point in time that you're going to have to give up something, as horrible as it is. And you've had issues with the breakaway regions. Letting that go and letting Russia keep that gives everybody an on-ramp. You join the EU and maybe promise no joining of NATO. That, I think, would be... I think you could look at that as a win, right? You stood up to them, but I don't know. I just think that there's something that with Putin that he wants more of, and I think at some point he is going to let the world in on that. And whether or not that's nuclear, Fiona Hill, who of course got caught up in the Trump stuff with the Ukraine and Russia and the whole nine yards, she goes against what Biden said. Where Biden says, is he going to use a nuclear weapon? She says, no. She goes, don't underestimate this guy. Will he? She goes, absolutely. I think he could and would. So I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting in the next, to see what kind of fortress they built in Kyiv, to see what that looks like in Kyiv as that convoy closes in. They've just announced they're going to do more strategic bombing and missiling and try to hit their intelligence. It's a horrible situation. It is. State of the Union tonight. Speaking of horrible situations, I'm kidding. It's tough to watch. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. It's tough to watch. It is. But tonight, we'll have the State of the Union. We'll talk a bit about that tomorrow for sure, in depth on all of that stuff. And it's just... He's going to tout a lot of stuff, but it's weird. He's going to be giving a speech as the Ukrainians emerge from what will probably be hell on earth tonight, potentially in Kyiv. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson shows your Twitter. Rough Greens makes any pet food better. Give it to my dogs every single day. Every day. Sprinkle on top of my dog's food. Gets it in the morning, gets it at night. It has helped my dogs tremendously. It'll help your dogs. First of all, allergy season came and went. My dogs had zero issues with their skin, any of their fur. The other thing I love about it is the energy it gives him, and it's incredible, especially for my older dog. His hips don't hurt like they used to. It was really bad. We've talked about it before. I almost thought about putting him to sleep because I just felt it wasn't fair. And to see the way that he is now is awesome. In fact, when I left this morning, sat down on a chair, and he was snuggled up in his little blanket, and I petted him. I love him. He's great, but I got to go back to Rough Greens. If it wasn't for Rough Greens, I don't think we'd have him around anymore. I'm 100% certain about that. Try Rough Greens before you buy it. RUFFgreens.com/Chad. You cover the cost of shipping. They're going to send you a bag for free. Roughgreens.com/Chad. Call 833-MY-DOG-77. 833-MY-DOG-77. Rough Greens makes any pet food better. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
It is a nightmare. Absolutely. And it is getting uglier and uglier. The convoy convening on Kyiv. What is in there, what is not in there. Mike Lyons spoke to us last hour. If you miss any of it, grab the podcast. But he's like, it's weird that nothing has been an impediment to the convoy. There hasn't been any kind of attack on the convoy. And what is it going to look like? What's in there? Right now, it is an ugly situation that is going to get uglier. We've heard for the last, I'd say 12 to 14 hours that Russia has been upping the ante when it comes to use of bombs and missiles, and that maybe they've even committed a criminal act in using some of these things. It's just nasty. Nasty. And all that tonight, what do you have? Well, you got the president coming out, going to give his State of the Union at a time where, quite frankly, he is not been doing great. He is struggling, to say the least. His approval ratings are in the toilet. Let's just say that.
As Biden's approval ratings slumped to 37%, he's expected to shift away from his Build Back Better plan and instead focus on ways to improve the economy, increase domestic manufacturing, strengthen supply chains, and promote competition to lower prices and costs for families. The president also aims to turn a page on the pandemic. Coronavirus cases have dropped more than 30% over the last 3 weeks, though thousands of Americans are still dying from the disease.
Yeah. Of course, then you've got the masking argument. Will they, won't they? Yesterday, they yanked the Capitol's mask requirement out. People are asking questions. It's kind of weird, right? Right before the State of the Union, the mask has been a big problem for the Democrats, especially in blue states where people have just had enough. And California finally decided yesterday, hey, we're pulling off these the masking rules, and we're going to change it, and that's going to go for schools as well. San Francisco said, nah, we're going to keep it because of science. Idiots.
Was it important to the president that masks come off before the State of the Union? Is there a message that he hopes to send?
Well, I would say the president is very powerful, but I would say that for him, it had nothing to do with the timing around the State of the Union. He wanted to give the CDC the time to assess and make recommendations that would be clear to the American public about what their recommendations would be for mask wearing moving forward.
Yeah. It's hard to listen to anything the CDC has to say because they're just so full of crap. And they've been far more of the wrong side of things than the right side of things. By the way, where's Fauci in all this? Fauci's just disappeared. I don't know where he's at. So you're dealing with Ukraine. You're dealing with COVID still. And even though the masking is coming off, do you start talking about the other side of the pandemic? I think that's the big thing. Or are you going to, do the usual? Let's approach it from be prepared because we might have to put him back on.
They came in with a COVID plan. I think that's certainly one of the pluses you will hear. They got vaccinations up to a point that certainly they weren't at when he took office. But you've still got folks livid about masks in schools. You've had a Supreme Court throw out his mask mandate. They've got stagnant vaccination rates right now. They're still struggling with the messaging on COVID. So you're going to see him walk a very fine line, just reaching out to people who he knows are just exhausted with this, but still appealing to so many Americans to get that vaccine.
Yeah, but here's the beauty of what Omicron did. It vaccinated a lot of people that aren't going to get the vaccine. And the other side of stuff is a lot of the people who don't have vaccine are younger kids because we didn't. Yesterday, Pfizer came out and Pfizer's COVID, it sucked. It sucked. Their effectiveness was awful.
New data from the height of the Omicron surge in New York suggests the Pfizer pediatric dose vaccine was less effective in 5 to 11-year-olds than the full dose vaccine in teens and adults, providing minimal protection against infection a month after vaccination. But researchers stress the Pfizer vaccine still protected against severe disease, the most critical measure.
How would we know? Because kids don't get sick from this thing. Some kids do. Kids don't get sick and die the way that kids can from the flu, right? And the other thing, and this is important, and I don't think people realize this, and you should, we didn't get a lot of kids vaccinated. Parents went out and they got vaccinated. And a lot of people went out and they got vaccinated. But when it came to their kids, and I said we were going to see this, it's a different story, right? Your kid's still developing. I'm not getting my kids. Well, first of all, Jack, he got his shots. He's got his aunt, who's very close to. She had double lung transplant. The effectiveness of the shots on her are minimal. I think she's had 5 now because they don't last that long because the medicine she takes because of her double lung transplant, and many times it ends up neutralizing a lot of it. So he's got to be extra careful. That's fine. My stepkids, they didn't get it. My daughter, they don't have any. I mean, they've shut down the under 5. It's ridiculous. It is. It's at this point. You got to look at the numbers. When people say you're a science denier, no, I look at the numbers. I mean, if we're going to be living in fear and terror, then, we could just say, screw masking. Let's just everybody stay home. Solves the problem. Well, we can't live like that. And neither can children. Children can't live eternally masked indoors. Finally, well, some schools are letting them unmask outdoors. It's the dumbest thing. Talked about it earlier. Some of these rules are so arbitrary and stupid. Right? Case in point, Kyrie Irving, the basketball player. You can go to the basketball game and watch your team play now. So go to the arena, get some popcorn, right? Maybe a little beverage, eat a hot dog, watch your team play. You're not vaccinated. You cannot play in the game. Why? Where's the science? Please. Hey, you're a pilot and you can't fly because you're not vaccinated. Oh, okay. Can I fly on the plane? Yeah. What? It became politics. It has. And it's a nightmare. But I do find it odd that tonight that you watch what happens. Like, oh, yeah, there's no mask. He's going to wear a mask. Because that's the signal he wants. I'm wearing a mask. Okay. Great. And look, here's the reality in a lot of that stuff. You're the president of the United States. They're going to make you extra. I mean, here's something they can't see that they want to protect you from, right? They can't see it. So no bodyguard's going to throw himself in front of you for something he can't see. Something she can't see. So they're trying to protect you. And based on the fact that who the vice president is, please, for the love of God, double mask. It's not very nice, Chad. I'm just saying, right? Let's hear from the the vice president.
Because as we all know, elections matter. And when folks vote, they order what they want. And in this case, they got what they asked for. I went off script a little bit.
You think?
I went off script a little bit.
Oh, God, she is awful. She is. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us. Text the program. A lot of stuff still to get to. The Secretary of State Blinken talking about what is going on currently over there. Russia, the nightmare. Today, 100-plus diplomats got up against the UN and just bounced, which was an embarrassment to Russia, was Lavrov was talking, as there should be, because exactly. Why, again, did you do this? Oh, yeah, the new thing today, guys, if you haven't heard from the Ukraine. So originally it was, you're part of us, right? You're our brothers and sisters. You are the heartbeat of us. And then it was, well, genocide in the Donbass region is taking place, and you're killing and destroying all of these Russian Ukrainians who are separatists, which, look, the separatist thing is real. They've been fighting that for years. So that's a real thing. Oh, and then this one is this is a good one. We have to denazify and demilitarize the Ukraine as they buddy up with NATO. And the Nazis are running everything. The Jewish president is a Nazi. And then my favorite one is the new one today is they were efforting to get a nuclear bomb and maybe potentially use it. So that's the effort of which they're taking. They are so full of crap, they don't even know what to do at this point in time. And then, of course, you've got the UN, which is as useless as it gets.
These are the human rights abuses this council was created to stop. If we cannot come together now, when will we come together?
Never. Secretary of State Blinken. The reality is never. The UN is a joke. An absolute joke. Take them to any elementary school. Have the kids start a food fight and then see if they could stop that. I think the answer you would get is no, because they're useless. It is essentially a giant piece of property of which we fund in prime real estate area in New York, where a bunch of criminals, thugs, asshats, scammers, grifters can get together, play grab ass with one another, shake each other down for money. Nothing gets accomplished there. Nothing. We know that. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. A lot of stuff to get to. More of what's going on in the Ukraine. Your password. We've got the worst passwords used. You know what they are. We'll talk about those passwords. Which one are yours? Touch on that straight ahead. A lot of stuff still squeeze in. And uncontrollable hair. Right? Uncomfortable hair. It's a real thing. It is. Wait to hear this. This is crazy. It's crazy. I'm telling you, it's crazy. And I don't have that problem because I don't have any hair, but still. Car Shield. I do have cars. And I don't have warranties on a couple of my cars. They're older. So they're not that old. They just, the warranties weren't that long. And guess what? I don't care. I've got Car Shield. Car Shield gives me 24/7 roadside assistance, a rental car for free while my car's in the shop if it goes in there. And then they're going to get them paid directly. They're going to handle all the paperwork, and they take care of all that. I pay a small deductible, and away I go. I've had to use it for one of my cars when it came to the electronics in the car. Thank you so much, Car Shield. If 1 million drivers have been helped by Car Shield. They're America's #1 auto protection company. In a time when car prices are rising, used car prices are through the roof, the reality is it's taking longer to fix your car. It's taking much more money out of your pocket to get that car fixed and to pay for it. So why not protect yourself up front? Get yourself Car Shield. They got plenty of plans to fit anybody's budget. And right now, save an extra 10%. Go to carshield.com/Benson. Carshield.com/Benson saves you an extra 10%. Check out all the plans they have. Remember to use carshield.com/Benson. A deductible may apply. Chad Benson Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
They made it abundantly clear yesterday. They do not want a 14-team playoff. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be off the table, but the 12-team playoff is something that materialized yesterday, and the players stuck firm and hard with. And I think it, when it's all said and done, that may be what there is.
Yeah, Jeff Passan there talking about baseball because we're close to potentially losing games, which is something that I don't think is going to help their sport, especially a sport that is getting older and is not replenishing their audience.
I think that the threat of games being missed is not just bad for the players. It's really, really bad for the league, too. And that in the end, Rob Manfred is going to be the one who makes the choice to cancel games, just as he was the one who made the choice to lock the players out. And that's the hand that the players have in this situation, and that they're going to try and leverage until 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern today.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what it looks like, but Major League Baseball is close to at least postponing the good portion of the first part of the season if they can get a deal done. And I don't think they're as close to getting a deal done as maybe some people think. And we'll find out. We'll find out. Mardi Gras coming back. Who's ready for Mardi Gras? So Mardi Gras is coming back, and this is the first time that they've are having a Mardi Gras. It's been a while since we've had people partying. I think last year was the year we missed everything, right? Like they started to party hard, and they did, and then last year, no party.
This is a 180 from this time last year when dangerously high COVID rates prompted the mayor of New Orleans to cancel the parades, a huge economic blow for the city. Local officials say hotels last weekend were about 70 to 80% full. That is good news here in the Big Easy, but a far cry from 2019's record-breaking year when an estimated 19 million tourists generated about $10 billion.
Now the question is, what's going to be going on?
Smaller crowds, COVID restrictions, shorter parade routes, but all the feathers, beads, sequins you can dream of as the 165-year event is back in most of its glory.
Boobies. Chad, she also said COVID restrictions. Are we over that?
New Orleans has some of the toughest COVID restrictions in the South with indoor mask mandates, proof of vaccination requirements or negative tests for anyone for indoor restaurants over the age of 5 or indoor spaces. That is all those precautions to prevent a repeat of Mardi Gras 2020, the country's first super spreader event of the pandemic.
Oh, my God. It's a super spreader. Do you remember the super spreader that was all the football games? Yeah, I don't remember those either. I don't remember those. Bars, though, that's what the one thing they did say, right? For all of the things that we saw in the COVID insanity, don't do this, don't do that. The one thing when we went through that was about 2-3 weeks ago that said closing down all these things did nothing. The one thing they did say that did seem to have some sort of an effect on the spread was bars. Bars, for whatever reason, part of it's you're drinking, right? You're letting you down your guard. You know, your inhibitions are gone, and you're closer, and you're talking, and it's crowded, and you're indoors more often than not. It's tended to be a spreader more than the other stuff. But anytime they have a chance to shut stuff down, I mean, that's what everybody's waiting for. Everybody's waiting for, in the event of the return of COVID, don't throw that mask away yet. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Mardi Gras, little Fat Tuesday. Got the Ash Wednesday. Oh, kids. And then, of course, you've got Ukraine, the nightmare that's going on there. And it's going to get ugly. And tonight may be the first night of what it's going to look like in this real war with the Ukrainians in their capital. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
You know, when a bully gets a comeuppance, we always go, I kind of like that, right? Like, you ever watch a movie and there's a guy, he's a real Richard, and he's a bully, gets their comeuppance. I go back to Some Kind of Wonderful. Love that movie. It was a great movie, right? Eric Stoltz, and it was awesome. It's just a great movie. And there's a bully in the movie, and he's rich, and he's turd, and he's awful, and he gets his comeuppance at the end. And it's great. We like that. We do. We see what's going on. We see what's happening. We see what's going on right now. The bully is pushing. A bully is looking at a vulnerable nation that is looking to get themselves on solid footing, that since its independence from the Soviet Union, it has struggled with corruption, arguably one of the most, if not the most corrupt nations in Europe. And the funny thing is, it's not part of the EU. But the Ukraine is doing everything they can, right? They got a young president who's trying to do some stuff. I mean, he came into a situation where the first thing he does is he meets with Trump, and, you know, that goes sideways. He's got the Crimea issue. He thinks he's getting some weapons. And now he's got this bully that has come over and is continuing to just push. And we want to see that comeuppance. We do. We want to see that. We want to see him get tripped up. The reality, though, is this bully at this moment in time is got just a lot of stuff that the little guys just don't have. And it's, you just feel like in the coming hours, and we were just talking about it, you can see it now. They're targeting things harder. They're not worried about civilians. It is going to, I have a feeling, in the coming days, get much uglier, especially as they converge on Kyiv.
We've been hearing from the Pentagon that all the plans to basically encircle Kyiv are moving forward. We have seen the images of those convoys. And at this time, there is no sign that Russia has any plans to de-escalate. In fact, what we've seen on the ground, what the Pentagon and the State Department are saying is that Russia is turning to more aggressive methods that could result in the loss of more innocent life.
Yeah, and civilian bombings have taken place. In fact, some things that have happened, people are questioning whether or not they've committed war crimes.
Human Rights Watch pointing to this video online, accusing the Russians of using cluster bombs on the city. If verified, an attack on civilian areas would be a war crime.
Yeah. The vacuum bomb And then, of course, his threats, Putin, of nuclear option for everybody. And they're coming hard at him. Let's not pretend they're not. They're coming as hard as we can with our sanctions. We are putting things in place when it comes to NATO as a let's just make sure we are not caught with our pants down, if you will, should something escalate and it leaves this confined area and lands in a NATO country.
French troops are arriving in Romania as the lead elements of this force.
Yeah, so the French are there, so that should put everybody at ease. It's ugly. It is, and it sucks. And we have to make sure that Russia pays the biggest price we can. And the big thing is, once again, pushing them away from everything. Making sure that they are a pariah, making sure that nobody wants anything to do with anything that is Russian. That is what we have to do. And you look at the Russian people. I don't blame them, but the reality is, at this point in time, in a situation like this, you and I both know this is not like, as I explained yesterday to a couple of my friends, it's not like, take, for instance, Iran, where the West hasn't infiltrated all that much, and you've got Khomeini and everybody. They have ultimate control of so many things. Or China, but they understand a lot of the West because they're able to travel and move around. Or South, you look at South and North Korea. Like, one side, just several miles away, is living life like you couldn't believe, and the other side is living like it's the 1800s. But that's a death cult. They don't know any better. Right? Moscow is a vibrant place. Moscow has become westernized. Moscow wants their Levi's, their Apple products. Moscow wants the same ththings that we do. It's hard to flip a regime in a world, like if you look at Afghanistan and stuff, where it is back-assward and there's a death cult component to it. It's tough. It's tough. But Moscow, just like with China, if you start taking away freedoms, well, they've done that in China. Yes, they've done that somewhat in China, but they've got economic freedoms. Now, they're not going to have economic freedoms, and it's starting to look like a police state.
Now, authorities have always kept a close eye on people, but Moscow really does feel more and more like the capital of a police state. Riot police have flooded the center of town following days of protests across the country. More than 5,000 have now been arrested in anti-war protests.
Yeah, and that, from what I understand, is now underreported. It could be closer to 7, and they face up to 20 years in prison. They're no joke over there. But they're seeing their world collapse. They've been isolated in every aspect now that you could think of, even this. And I said this, the most important person that turned away from Putin, right, isn't the West and all this stuff. It was Orban, guy in Hungary, who has been Putin's pal, a guy that Putin has helped prop up, a guy who was taking away, in many cases, freedoms from a bunch of Hungarian people, who was clamping down. He said, nah, this is not right. This is not right. We want to see the bully get a comeuppance, but the reality is, just like with what's going on right now in the Ukraine, with them saying, screw it, we're just going to collateral damage and we're just going to be as brutal as possible, the economic brutality has got to be felt by the Russian people, because they're the ones eventually who could try to push for a different kind of change. But it isn't going to be tomorrow or next week. You got to make sure this doesn't happen again with the next person. So you isolate the hell out of them.
All of this coming as Europe closes its airspace to Russian aircraft. With far fewer flights, the US is now telling its citizens to leave Russia immediately. In response, Russia is banning airlines from 36 countries. The international outrage is growing. Soccer's governing bodies banning Russia from the World Cup and all competitions. Shell Oil announcing it will quit all its Russian operations. That follows BP, who divested its nearly 20% stake in the country's key oil company Rosneft. FedEx and UPS are also halting all shipments into the country. Google and Facebook's parent company Meta also blocking Russian state media from receiving money for ads.
Now, let's forget OnlyFans. If you're a content creator over there, you are not going to be OnlyFans. And if you're into Pornhub and you wanted to watch, sorry, they're getting involved and they're saying no nakedness for you. All that being said, as much as we want to see the bully get their comeuppance, it isn't going to be tomorrow. It's going to take a while. It is. But come on, we all look at it. We all see that convoy and we think to ourselves, my God, a couple planes, right? Just strafe that thing. Just take all those people out they're coming there. You know, the Chechen rebel force leader said it's time for us to get serious now. It's time for us to be more brutal. This is what they want to do. And this is one of those things where in brutality, which is what these people know, right? A lot of these Russian soldiers know. The Chechen rebel soldiers they brought in, though they do, right? Putin does. They don't understand other things. These people are statistics. They are no more than that. Tonight, State of the Union, President Biden, one of the big things is going to be, obviously, gas prices.
For this tow truck driver in Southern California, he has to fill up at $5 a gallon.
I'm going to pay right now for 30 gallons, this $120 or $150.
It hurts just about everyone. New Energy Department figures show the price of regular unleaded up 8 more cents in the past week as oil prices rise because of the war in Ukraine and uncertainty in Russia. The Midwest seeing the biggest one-week jump up 11 cents in the past 7 days.
Think about filling up your car if it takes you $150 to fill up your car, and you make $20 an hour. It's almost a day's work. Is that incredible? That's California. I will say overnight, a 10-cent jump overnight. The gas station down the street here. It's almost $4. And gas prices are going to continue to rise. We won't feel it, many people are saying, until probably the middle of the month. And that is, again, a lot of that's predicated on what ends up happening. You know, does it get uglier? Does it get to the point where, I mean, you know, can we put pressure? Gas is currently sitting at almost $107. $107. I mean, oil. So think about what potentially could get baked in as this thing gets uglier. Think about those things. Oil-producing countries and consuming countries across the globe are going to release some 60 million barrels of oil. What does that do? Well, I'll tell you this right now. I think we consume about 17 million barrels a day. It's not going to make a huge dent, but they're trying to do something. All that being said, uncertainty and OPEC and several other things is going to keep this, and the consumption and the way that we're consuming is going to keep prices high for the foreseeable future. It's unfortunate. And tonight, he's going to have to address that. How does he address that? It's not going to be about going energy independent, right? Because he's going to sit there and kowtow to, we got to take care of the wee willy winky worm and the crap like that, rather than saying, you know what? We need to drill responsibly. And we need to. And while we're doing that, we need to also look at other sources of actual energy that is better for the environment, that is cleaner for the environment, that is also something that we can turn to on a consistent basis for the consumer. And by us drilling in a responsible way, we can control things that other nations will not control, and we don't have to give them our money to hate us. Just a thought. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Talk a little password coming up. What's your password? Is it QWERTY? Oh, yes. One of the 20 passwords that hackers and everybody said, don't do that. don't do that. Rough Greens makes any pet food better. Give it to my dogs every day. ruffgreens.com/Chad. You can get a free bag right there. Sprinkle on top of your dog's food. Vitamins, minerals, probiotics, omega-3, 6, 9, all this incredible stuff. When you give it to your dogs, watch what happens. They're not asking you, change my dog's food. I don't want to do that. No, you don't have to. But just put this on top of your dog's food and watch the difference. See the energy. If your dogs have trouble with arthritic hips and things of that nature, watch how much better they are, especially for those older dogs. And for me, I'll start to give it to my younger dogs because I want them to start out right. Try it for free before you buy it. ruffgreens.com/Chad. It's a bag. You just cover the cost of shipping. You're going to get that bag for free. ruffgreens.com/Chad or call 833-MY-DOG-77. Rough Greens makes any pet food better. Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is this one of you out there? The dark web apparently have released the 20 most common passwords that people use. So these are the most commonly found passwords. They've been leaked through an account of the dark web. And it's simple, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. QWERTY, if you don't know what that is. QUWERTY. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Password. 111111. 0. QWERTY 1, 2, 3. 1Q 2W3E. Default, all capital. What? 654321. QWERTY UIOP. So what was that? So you got the QWERTY, right? The Q at the top, and then go all the way through to the P. I love you. Capitalized I and L. 6666666. ABC 1, 2, 3. Again, O is 1. So if you use any of the passwords for your online accounts, you'd be wise to swap them for something more secure because you could get hacked. And here's the other side of stuff. If they really want to hack you, they're going to hack you. It's the other side of stuff they don't tell you. Like, you shouldn't use this. Like, if you want to protect this from your coworkers, right, your wife, your girlfriend, your husband, your kids, all right, maybe these. But if a hacker wants to get to you, they're going to get to you. I don't care how secure you think it is. Change it every 5 minutes. They'll figure it out. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. I found this to be interesting. The UN just a little while ago. Sitting there. Here they go.
I would now like to give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Sergei Lavrov, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation.
So the president of the UN does that. And of course, they've got all the little... Everybody speaks their own language, and then it gets interpreted. So, first of all, I didn't know it was His Excellency. So there it is. Remember, they're the president of the Human Rights Council. This is the session. All these people are sitting there.
You have the floor, Excellency.
As they say that, everybody just about gets up, grabs their stuff, and walks on out. See you. Bye-bye. Bye, freaking bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, I had hoped that after a 2-year gap I would be able to participate in the work of the United Nations Human Rights Council in person. However, I'm compelled to address you by video. The reason for this is the outrageous measures by the European Union to refuse to respect one of the fundamental human rights, the right to freedom of movement.
Yep, good. Suck it up, Buttercup. Suck it up, yeah. So the freedom movement. So Aeroflot, you can't get here, essentially. Russian airlines now, they can't fly anywhere. They can't fly over. The airspaces are all locked down and closed down, so they can't fly anywhere. We had a couple Aeroflots that I think landed here yesterday, but then where are they going to go? And one of the reasons is if they're being forced down to the ground, they'll confiscate them. So we have not said no to that. There was a couple that came from Mexico, I think, yesterday. I've flown Aeroflot. You don't want to do that. It's not one of those things you feel comfortable on anyways. But good riddance to bad rubbish. It's going to be a night, State of the Union. We'll see how the president is going to come out. He's facing just ugly polling numbers, and he realizes that he's got a crisis on our border. He's got a crisis in the Ukraine. He's got inflation problems. COVID seems to be slowing down. How much of that is reality and how much of that is politics at this moment in time and people living their life? And then, of course, you still have, the other day-to-day things that go on in this country. So that'll be interesting. And speaking of the Ukraine, it's another night of potential what-ifs. That looks like the battle is getting ready to rage and could get ugly. If you didn't catch Mike Lyons, he was on earlier in the program. Check out the podcast. But it's another one of those nights. And he said it. Every day they survive is a victory for their nation. So we'll see what that looks like. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Have a blessed day. We'll do it again tomorrow. Get some tacos. Night-night, Jack.
This is the Chad Benson Show.